Now that the NFL draft is over, I have 7 names of late round rookies that I love targeting at the end of your rookie drafts. Basically anywhere in the 3rd or 4th rounds. If these guys are there, I am taking them, and in the order of how they appear in this video. So we're going to kick things off with my ultimate 2024 draft crush. You guys already know who it is. Ray Davis, who lands with the Buffalo Bills in the 4th round as the 8th running back taken in the draft. Again, like I said, if you've been watching our videos this year, you know how much I loved Ray Davis prior to the draft, and all we needed was a situation where he can climb the depth chart to hopefully have an immediate impact, and I believe we got that in Buffalo. For 2 years now, the Bills have been trying to find that perfect 1B complement with James Cook, and I think Davis fits that role perfectly. Last year, the Bills gave a combined 145 carries to Latavius Murray, Ty Johnson, Damian Harris, and Leonard Fournette in that complementary role of James Cook, and none of them were really all that good with it. So in comes Ray Davis, who has true 3-down ability as a pounder between the tackles and also a very quality receiver out of the backfield too. And I think this situation is a very similar role to the Browns backfield a few years ago, a workhorse Nick Chubb with a complementary Kareem Hunt who does a lot of the very same things as that workhorse, just maybe not as good. So there is definitely standalone value with Davis as a guy that you could start during bye weeks or injuries if you needed to, but the other part of Davis's value comes from being one of the best handcuffs in the league already. If James Cook were to ever miss time, Ray Davis would be a borderline RB1 in the weeks that Cook was out from a pure volume and usage standpoint alone. He would be like this year's version of Zach Moss or Zamir White from last year, or Tyler Algier from the end of 2022. He can be that good with a full workload in this Bills offense. I know I said to look at these guys in the 3rd and 4th rounds of your rookie drafts, but I actually have Ray Davis ranked at 212 in Superflex leagues, so I'm willing to make that pick there. But if he is available in the 3rd round, he is my auto pick whenever I'm on the clock in that round. The next player on this list are actually 2 players, and it's the other 2 tight ends after Brock Bowers in Jatavion Sanders and Ben Sinnott. So far from mocks and a few real drafts that I've seen or been a part of, both of these guys are falling out of the top 25, which I can understand because of all the receivers that we got on day 2, plus you throw in some running backs in there, quarterbacks and Superflex, but I think this is presenting a value to take a shot on one or even both of these guys as depth tight ends that could develop into every week starters. Looking at Jatavion Sanders, even though he fell to day 3, I still really like the Panthers landing spot. This receiving core is definitely a very busy one with all the players that they already had and then traded for or drafted this year, but outside of Deontay Johnson and a soon-to-be 34-year-old Adam Thielen, really nobody on this roster is proven, and that level of unknown could present an opportunity for someone to separate themselves, and it might honestly be Sanders as the tight end 1 on the team rather than like the wide receiver 3 or 4 on the roster currently. Don't forget that Sanders was a very productive player at Texas over the past 2 seasons, including 2023, where he was behind both Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell, plus contending with Jonathan Brooks for targets, and it was a very busy receiving core in college, and he was still able to put up almost 700 yards as a junior. If he's truly the tight end talent that I think he is, then becoming Cole Kmet or Dallas Goedert would almost be like a median outcome for his career with upside to be a borderline difference-making player at the position for fantasy. Think like Mark Andrews very early on whenever he was winning with yards, winning with a lot of touchdowns, and then he just put everything together for a breakout 4th year. That is what I think Jatavion Sanders could become in like a 1% ceiling outcome, with a more median outcome being just a very nice every week starter. Then as for Ben Sinnott, who found himself on a really good landing spot with the Washington Commanders in the 2nd round no less, is the only tight end drafted in the 2nd round and one of 2 tight ends even drafted on day 2. There is an immediate opportunity for Sinnott to be Washington's tight end 1 over Zach Ertz, who is also turning 34 this year. Logan Thomas was 4th on the Commanders' target share list last year and produced 5 tight end 1 weeks in his first 10 games, and that was with Curtis Samuel on the team, who is now gone and was really just effectively replaced by Luke McCaffrey in the 3rd round. So if Sinnott can rise to 3rd on the targets on the team, there's a solid chance that he could be, like what I said, a Cole Kmet, a Dallas Goedert kind of player, someone who doesn't really give you elite numbers all that consistently, but is still a very quality every week starter that you don't feel terrible for starting every single week because you don't have a better tight end 1. But let's move over to the wide receiver position, and one late round receiver that I love taking the shot on is Javon Baker, landing with the New England Patriots as the 2nd receiver off the board on day 3. I look at my marker system now with everything finalized from the draft, and after the draft capital adjustments, Baker grades out as the wide receiver 16 in the class, which might not sound inspiring, but after a dozen players taken in the 1st and 2nd rounds, plus we have Malachi Corley as a 3rd rounder, Troy Franklin is still up there, even though he was on day 3, but after that, Javon Baker really stands out as a sleeper at the position this late in rookie drafts. He originally began his career at Alabama, but playing behind Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, Jamison Williams, and John Mechie, he just wasn't really able to see the field all that much, so he transferred to UCF and had some great production there, including a season high of over 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns in an offense that only threw the ball 350 times. He actually had the 3rd highest final yards per team pass attempt in the class and the 5th highest final season yards per route run. He's 6'1", over 200 pounds, played primarily on the outside at UCF with a very natural and fluid route running ability to separate from defenders, but he can also go up and high point the ball and make some great contested catches along the boundary. And you put all of that together and place him on a team like the New England Patriots, who really don't have any proven talent at all outside of the hopefuls of Demario Douglas from the glimpses that we saw last year and the potential of their 2nd round pick in Jalen Polk. Baker has an opportunity here to separate himself and potentially become the wide receiver 1 on the team for Drake May. I hate to honestly make this comp because I don't think anybody is Puka Nacua, but if you're looking for this year's Puka Nacua, I would place my bet on that being Javon Baker on the New England Patriots. Going back to the running back position now, you can't have a late round targets video without talking about Kimani Vidal, who was one of the last running backs taken in the draft as a 6th rounder, but he found himself in one of the best imaginable spots for a running back this year in the LA Chargers. We know this team wants to run the ball. It's a Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman specialty, and after passing on Malik Neighbors for Joe Alt, basically all but confirmed that on day 1. But the depth chart in LA right now is a 29-year-old Gus Edwards on a super cheap salary, J.K. Dobbins just 8 months removed from an Achilles injury, also very cheap salary. Isaiah Spiller, another day 3 running back who's done basically nothing since, and now Kimani Vidal. And listen, I'm not going to go out of my way to draft Vidal because the probability he even does anything as a 6th rounder is really, really slim. I'm still taking Jalen Wright, Blake Corum, and Marshawn Lloyd ahead of him, but once you get past them and you enter true handcuff territory with other day 3 picks this year, Kimani Vidal is my guy. He was extremely productive in college at Troy with an insane 2023 season of almost 1,700 yards and 14 touchdowns, plus over 90 receptions through his 4 years career. He's a shorter running back, but is still 213 pounds as one of those like stockier bowling ball types, and he did clock in with a sub-4 540 with one of the best speed scores in the entire class. I would not at all be shocked if Vidal ended up leading the Chargers in rushing production this year, especially with the injury histories of Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. This honestly reminds me a lot of Elijah Mitchell a few years ago, who just climbed the depth chart because of his overall talent. Maybe injuries help pave that road a little bit quicker for him, but if he can get on the field and find himself with 15 plus touches every single week, I would not be surprised, and he would be very good for fantasy if that happens. So he is well worth a 3rd round flyer pick in every single rookie draft. So I said that Javon Baker is my favorite later round receiver pick to target in rookie drafts, but if he's not there and you want to take a flyer on a receiver still, take a look at Devontez Walker, the 4th round pick to the Baltimore Ravens. Now, Walker really did himself no favors during the draft process, and I think his Senior Bowl really deflated a lot of his hype for a lot of people, but landing with the Ravens is a fantastic landing spot for the type of player that Tez Walker is, and his poor draft process is just making him a value late in rookie drafts. On film last year in North Carolina, Tez Walker was a massive vertical threat with 4.35 speed, and when he's able to use that speed throughout the entire route and maintain that speed after the catch, he is an absolute dangerous weapon to stretch a defense. He's also a decent contested catch receiver as well, and he has tremendous leaping ability with that 40-inch vertical to go up and high point the ball in the boundary. He is definitely not a wide receiver 1. Do not mistake him for being a 1. His routes are nowhere near good enough for that, but that is okay because in this Ravens offense, he doesn't have to be that, and he fits the deep role that the Ravens haven't really had for a while really, really well. OBJ is no longer on the team. Rashad Bateman has battled health issues his entire career. Nelson Aguilar is, well, Nelson Aguilar. So after Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews, this depth chart is wide open for someone to separate themselves and become a consistent target every single week, especially if they're not operating in the same part of the field as Flowers and Andrews. And that is exactly what I think Tez Walker can do and become. This may not sound like a compliment, but it is meant to be. If he becomes Gabe Davis in this Ravens offense, I would not be surprised at all. Maybe on the low end, he's more of like a Rashid Shaheed on the Saints. And then on the high end, we're looking at like Dallas Cowboys Brandon Cooks, who wins on big playability and his efficiency rather than the target volume. All of these guys were top 45 receivers in fantasy last year who all had spike weeks of production and are the perfect home run flex plays if you need a big week. And that is what I think Tez Walker can ultimately become on the Baltimore Ravens, and it's well worth a pick in the 3rd rounds or even in the 4th rounds of your rookie drafts if he's fallen that far. Now, if you get to a point in the draft where none of these guys are available, then there is absolutely nothing wrong with just taking a handcuff running back this year because we got a ton of them in the draft. So just choose your favorite guy or who you think has the best chance to see the field or to become a workhorse if the starter went down, and just draft that guy. To me, my order goes Will Shipley on the Eagles, Braylon Allen on the Jets, Audric Estime on the Broncos, Bucky Irving on the Bucks, Rasheen Ali on the Ravens, Tyrone Tracy on the Giants, Dylan Labe on the Ravens, and Isaac Guerrero on the San Francisco 49ers. But again, all of these guys are just in one giant tier in my rankings. So if you prefer one guy or another, that is totally fine. Just take dart throws on these players because they could help you win a week during the season if the starter goes down and give you that RB2, RB1 week potentially as a handcuff running back. Now, I've mentioned my rankings a few times in this video. If you're interested in getting access to my entire top 50 Superflex rookie rankings, they are available on dynastyleaguefootball.com, and you can use the promo code DLFvideo to receive 20% off an annual subscription. Or you can check out Justin's running back rankings in this video right up here.